Greetings, wonderful audience. This week, of course, we got the third domain in the CGEIT exam preparation, the benefits realization. Nazia will be putting up the link for all the past ones and register for the future ones. Okay, this is fun. I've been bragging about LinkedIn Live. I was at a university today and they were talking about ways to get their message out, blah, blah, blah. It was great. It was a good internal meeting. I love LinkedIn Live. We had Kelly who was helping out before, he caught sick, coming back from the family vacation like everyone, first week of June. And Karina recruited the wonderful Shannon Brewster. Shannon, I don't even want to, kind of give you overview. Just give a little background, what the day job is and also what you're doing with ISC Squared.
Sure. Yeah. So I appreciate the invite. And my day job, I lead a cybersecurity consulting organization at AT&T in the middle of a transformation to a joint venture that we're forming and will be called Level Blue. And we do a lot of risk assessment type work, compliance work, payment card security, among other things. But the relevant topic at hand here is obviously compliance. And, at ISC2, I am the president of the Los Angeles, California chapter, and currently running for the board of directors. So if you're an IC2 member, please think of me and vote. And then before
Vote
July
for Shannon.
2nd.
And if you're Chicagoan, like I am, born and raised, vote twice. Come on. There we go. I didn't say that. Oh, good. Okay, let me share the screen and we should be good to go.
And thank you for joining us, Shannon. It's an honor to have you with us.
There we go.
You caught me on vacation, so open schedule.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm making him work during vacation.
That's right. Yeah.
Making yourself available. Because the good thing is, if you weren't on vacation, you probably wouldn't be available. So this worked out for us.
It really did. Yes. Oh, and audience, please. And a lot of people watch these afterwards also. But if you're live, you can just type into the LinkedIn chat, and Nazia will communicate back to me, and we can have further questions and discussions on your questions. Okay, let's just jump into it. Okay, the format is we read a question. Real important. Forgot to tell everyone this. I took the CGEIT the other week. Okay. This is really important for everyone to understand. If you don't listen to this, please listen to this. It will not have most of these questions. 95% of the test was questions that I never saw. But Garrett, you called this exam prep. Yes. What you want to do, the big reason I passed was that the discussion. Now you have two real GRC practitioners here. You got Karina and Shannon, right? So I'm going to read a question. We'll read the official answer, all that. Couldn't be happier, okay? But what's really relevant is a discussion around why. If you imbibe their discussion, if you imbibe the reality that they're painting around why the answer is, that's how it helped me a lot during the test. All right, let's take it away. Which of the following provides the greatest assurance that business requirements are met during software development? Adequate training, programmers who understand the business process, early engagement of key users, or documentation of the business case? Take it away.
Rules.
Yeah.
Business rules. I'll take this one if that's okay.
Yeah.
So how I like to do this is I actually like to go through and consider every option, right? As we saw before. So I think the two areas I'm going to hone in on are the words business requirement and software development. So we are in an SDLC environment and we are building something for our line of business, who's really the consumer of our IT services. So what's really, really going to be important here? Training is important. But that usually happens after we've deployed. We want to provide our users some information of how to be successful with any updates that we've made or a new platform that we've implemented. We want the programmers to understand the business process. Kind of B and D go together because you want to have those documented correctly. And you do want the programmers to understand those business processes and initiatives and the rules that are out there as part of developing the software. But you kind of want to go backwards and say, really what is my key area to hone in on as I embark into the software development process. And so basically, I'm going to go with C, key engagement of key users. That's going to be my answer. Shannon?
I think your thought process is spot on there, Karina. So I'm going to agree with you. See, early engagement, because to me, what really jumps out is, those business requirements are really defined as early as you can, right? And we hear a lot of almost cliche terms now, right? Like shifting left in software development, or secure by design. That only happens if you are engaged early, with the folks that are the key stakeholders in defining those requirements. So that's really what stood out to me there.
Audience, did you guys just hear a word that Shannon used? Stakeholders. Okay. That is key in passing the CGEIT. So Shannon, can you talk a little about stakeholders? Because that is a key concept in not only the study materials, but the exam and obviously in the actual profession.
Oh, it's a key concept anywhere you want to drive an initiative, develop a program. I think you really need to be plugged in and understand who is the full stakeholder community, who has an interest in this product. And of course, it's your end users, it's your developers, but anyone who's engaged in that process, your suppliers, right? They're all going to be a part of that ecosystem, and involving all of those key stakeholders and understanding how to prioritize the ones that are really, that's the word there, right? The keyword key.
Yeah.
But prioritization of those stakeholders, those interested communities in the platform that you're building, in the software that you're developing.
Yeah, the answer is, of course, C. And, because you can say early engagement of key users or literally early engagement of stakeholders. Okay, rock and roll. We're started, y'all. So question 2. Which of the following methods is the best way to ensure that IT services are delivered to the business with the expected results? Okay, best way to ensure that IT services are delivered to the business with the expected results. I think Shannon has a little idea about this stuff. Monitoring of key performance indicators, using service level agreements, monitoring key goal indicators, or using a balanced scorecard. Why don't we start with Shannon this time?
All right. So, I mean, when I look at a question like this, I'm kind of tearing this apart, kind of like we did the last one, right? And so monitoring of your key performance indicators or your KPIs kind of goes along with monitoring of key goal indicators. So let's group those together. And then when you're looking at your service level agreements or your balanced scorecard, well, balanced scorecard, I'm a huge fan of this, by the way. Check out Robert Kaplan's book on balanced scorecards. You can totally geek out on all kinds of templates for how to build a balanced scorecard. If you're building a cybersecurity program, it's an incredible platform through, defining a mission, a vision, what are the key themes, and then from there, your KPIs are going to fall into that. But really the key answer that I want to hone in on this one, I think, is service level agreements. And the reason for that, and so my answer would be B, because IT services, in order to ensure that they're being delivered, you need an SLA, right? You need to have, and an SLA is very, very specific. And so I come from a telecommunications company. The 5 nines of your SLA there's a big difference between 5 nines and 3 nines. The downtime is actually pretty significant over the course of the year, but that SLA is really key in terms of how you are ensuring that those IT services are actually being delivered, and you can require that supplier or regardless, right? That supplier is actually meeting those requirements. And then there's some contractual hooks, right? I know, Karina, do you want to say anything on that?
I actually want to do a quick definition between key performance indicators and key goal indicators. So I want to make sure that people do not interchange them and think they're the same thing. A goal is what you're going to get in the end, right? So your key goal indicator basically is telling you what's your end target. Your key performance indicators are going to tell you how are you getting to that target. So these are two really important things to kind of talk through. I'm not going to elaborate more on a balanced scorecard. I'm going to vote for key service, using service level agreements there. For those of you who follow ITIL, there's a concept called UC, underpinning contracts, of course. And then, Shannon, you wanted to talk about SLOs as well.
Yeah, be careful of an SLO. All that is saying is I'm going to try to do that. An SLO does not mean you're going to meet it. If you've got a contract that you're writing and they're giving you SLOs, there's not much you can do when they miss them.
Right.
Help me with the SLO and SLA. What's the
service
SLO?
level objective? It just means that's my objective. I'm gonna try to get back to you in 4 hours, right? Versus if I give you an SLA that I'm going to answer you within 4 hours, then typically that means that there's going to be some negative ramifications that you could hold me accountable to, typically in terms of penalties, right? And deductions in your service fees, something like that. But if it's just an SLO, there's not much you can do. They're just saying that's best effort.
Yeah, I learned TSPIP. Let's see when that works. That's a good point. And of course, the answer is B. And I have to say, and to those thinking about whether to take the CGIT, I learned some great things with it. One of them was really understanding, Shannon, the balanced scorecard. Okay, and the importance of this to the enterprise. And I've wrote down that book because one of our, I'm building I built a GRC product, and one of the my partners is building a dashboard, a compliance scorecard. I give him out. And he said, Garret, can I have this metric, and I'll put it on there. And I love it. And by studying this and doing these, I was like, that makes complete sense. And of course, we're passing it to his stuff, doing an audit Tuesday in a couple of weeks, but we're also putting it in our product. So, the stuff it feeds on itself. So, audience, the answer is B, service level agreements, right? I mean, if his team is gonna take the time to write them, right? Do them. Okay. Domain 3. Okay, question 3. Which of the following best helps improve and maintain business process functionality? Implementing continuous monitoring of business processes, implementing automated solutions, like this one, Karina, benchmarking processes to identify gaps, and assigning accountability to business process owners. Karina, take it away with a big smile.
All right. And so, folks, if any of you are thinking, those are watching that live stream, that they know the answer, please plug that into the chat. Very interesting.
Please do. Yeah, Nazia, make sure they plug that in there. You tell them.
Yeah. So I'm going to shuffle this one around. As I read this question, I look at business process functionality, obviously, right? That's the thing in my hand. That's the thing I'm targeting, is optimize business process functionality. So I want to do continuous monitoring, but it might be very cumbersome and manual, right? If your controls are not written the right way, as far as who owns that control and how frequently is that evidence being gathered, if you're using ethereal, nebulous words, you're never going to be able to put in continuous monitoring the right way, right? Benchmarking is super duper important, right? We want to know where we started because we're going to be doing the key goal indicators. We're going to do the KPIs, the key process indicators, right? And we want folks to own those processes. And that's where that business process owner comes in, very important. However, real optimization in business processes comes in when you implement automated solutions. My answer is B, because if you're writing, it doesn't matter what ticket. I mean, look, folks have their favorite ticketing system, their favorite GRC system. There's 53 different GRC tools out there, according to Gartner, that they actually evaluated. And it's only as good as the business logic reflecting your actual operations and your company priorities, that it's only going to work as good as the data you put into it, right? So you want to make sure that all of those controls are written in a way that has the proper owner, that is executed at the right amount of time. There's a very succinct pass and fail criteria for those control, meaning if it fails, it hops over to risk management, right? But you won't be able to get to any of that until you start targeting that automated solution.
Shannon?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's helpful is to understand that, you can think about this from an automation of business logic, software, those types of things, but you can automate a process by outsourcing it, right? So it just might be getting a service provider. You're struggling with meeting a compliance requirement around your vulnerability management program. Well, if you need to make sure that you're following that policy to a T, why not outsource that to a firm that'll run those scans and drive that patching according to the policy that you wrote? That's an automation as well, right? So just kind of maybe expanding that to have a wider reach than maybe we would intuitively think of.
And this was a really easy one for me because I built an automated user recertification product at YouAttest, right? And the facts on manual access reviews, there's like 60% error rates. So if you're going to actually put processes, you got to automate those, either outsourcing or using a tool. The answer is B. Question 4. Which of the following is the most essential to the overall success of an IT governance implementation? Sure, you run into this, Shannon. Monitoring cost of projects, formalizing monthly meetings between the board of directors and the chief information officer, monitoring drivers for IT initiatives, allocating required resources for individual projects. Those are the choices. Let's just start this one, Shannon.
All right. So, I mean, when I tear that one apart, I'm looking at what's the most essential to ensuring the success. So, obviously the governance is a key piece here, the governance implementation. So if you're looking at implementation, that should take you right back to the beginning, right? And so that keys me right in to answer number C, which is monitoring the drivers for the initiatives, the IT initiatives. What was the purpose that we ultimately set out to achieve? What was the goal that we were trying to accomplish? So understanding those business drivers, what launched your IT initiative is ultimately going to help you understand what the success metrics were. What is the success going to be of that IT governance? So you want to get back earlier in the process and really understand what the initial drivers were.
I wish I would have had this before I even took the test. That was good. Take it away, Karina.
So I've actually been in situations where we had a wall full of proposed projects, right? And so we've got, just having been a PMO director, we've got different lines of business saying, this is important and this is important. I want this and I want you to change that. And you have X number of project managers, right? So when you're talking about implementing IT services, internal process, people process technology, right? Whether your technology or your people or your process comes from a vendor or internal, you're talking about like a steering committee, right? And so in order for you to really go back to understanding why you're doing all of those projects, you have to look at the drivers. That's really the only answer for this, because the most important things for your company, according to your, in participation with your stakeholders, but possibly according to your board or your C-levels or whoever are making those decisions and setting that priority, they establish the drivers. So your job is to align the implementation to those drivers.
Yeah, the answer, of course, is C, monitor drivers for IT initiatives. Good stuff. Okay, 5. Which of the following should primarily be considered when reviewing multiple projects within an IT investment portfolio for alignment with current business requirements? That'd be A, key performance indicators, B, an IT investment plan, A resource dependency matrix, number C, and D, key goal indicators. Take it away, Karina.
All right, so let's go back to that definition we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a key goal indicator and a key performance indicator. So
right.
Your goal indicator is going to tell you what is your goal and what is going to be successful, right? Your performance is going to track you along the way. Now, sure, we have to have money That's important. We have to have resources and we want to make sure that they're available. That's important as well. But when we're talking again against multiple projects, right, we want to make sure that we're highlighting those key goal indicators as really our drivers, because we want to make sure that, based on the prior question, those drivers. So now we understand the drivers have goals. And the goals really out of all of these options, although they're all important, the most important one is really that key goal indicator for once you've selected that project.
Interesting. Any thoughts on that, Shannon?
Yeah, I don't know if I could do much better on that, but I could say, when I look at this, several of these answers are really taking you to something that's much further down the line, right? KPIs, the question's driving you towards alignment of what you're going to do with the business priorities. So you need to be earlier in the process. KPIs are measuring, how you're going to be delivering. Resource dependency, also taking you to a place where you're looking at how am I going to get this done? So you're a little bit further down the process.
Yeah. And the answer, of course, is the key goal indicators. Okay. 6, measuring the value of a new service provided by IT to the business best helps an enterprise optimize the risk associated with the use of IT, implementing an IT governance framework, optimize the portfolio of IT investments, and D, maximize stakeholder satisfaction. Take it away, Shannon.
All right. So, for this one, we're looking at, we've got new services and we're trying to measure the value of those services, right? So how do we understand which is best helping the enterprise? That's really going to be a function of optimizing that portfolio of IT investments, because you're trying to ensure that you're helping the enterprise. So you want those IT investments to be aligned with that, right? So some of these other answers, they're really not hitting the mark. Risk is not really, appropriate in this one. At this point, risk obviously is typically a key factor, in how you're choosing those solutions, of course. But, at the end of the day, you want to optimize that portfolio of IT investments. And that's how you're going to ensure that it's best helping the enterprise. You don't want to be spending for solutions that are not really, aligned with that mission. And you see a lot of this in cybersecurity, right? Like chasing the latest tool. And we actually find in most environments that a lot of the tools that are there are not actually being used or being underutilized. You actually see a lot of overlap in tools as well. Karina?
And not only overlapping tools, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten complaints about, a swivel chair situation where you have 3 different incident management tracking tools and you've got 4 different vendors sending you all kinds of triggers and alerts, and then you got to go into this portal and that portal, and it's sometimes that sort of a situation definitely needs governance. But when you're talking about new services, right? So the keyword here is new. So you're talking about a new investment. So really the only answer is number C on this one. Now, once you've got that new investment in place and you've executed and you've stood it up, of course, you want to measure the governance of it. You may want to measure the governance of the execution of the project, right? You definitely want to have well-defined controls and ownership for those controls so that if it fails, you can write that down on your risk registry, right? So those are more tactical executable situations downstream.
Yeah, and I am going to ask a follow-up question. Which group, because I heard you mention, at least the way CGEIT Karina, is handling optimizing the portfolio of IT investments? Whose job is that in the enterprise?
Well, it really depends on the company. I hate to use the "it depends" answer, but a lot of times, right? So first it matters, where does the PMO sit? Second, it matters who's got the pocketbook. Third, it matters who's doing the risk assessments. Is there a separate department of that? Is there not? Then it matters, who are the stakeholders and who's the one that makes that decision, right? If it's the board, great. The board is going to be very specific about their targets and what it is they want you to accomplish, and they're going to give you a budget for that. Right. So it comes back to a few questions ago where we were talking about those key goals. We were talking about how are we going to integrate all of the drivers that we have. And then once we do that, we want to have that portfolio. We've gone through the proposed projects. We've prioritized the proposed projects. Now we have a portfolio of those investments that we've actually put money into. And that's where, this really comes in. We have X dollars that we started from, we execute the project, and now what's that value? Have we gained efficiency in our human work hours for a compliance program or whatever this thing is solving? Have we complicated it? Have we gotten additional clients? Right? Are we able to retain clients further because we have another service offering or we have an expanded service offering? So these are all considerations that you want to make that as you're measuring this out.
Yeah. Yeah. I just saw a lot of time in the test and in the setting that they associated the optimization of the portfolio with the steering committee. Did that hurt your brain or that work? Okay. This steering committee, they always associated in the test with optimizing the portfolio. Does that sound right to you?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. All right. Question 7. And the answer is C. Thanks, guys. Okay. Question 7. Which of the following metrics best provides information about the performance of value-based management practices? The metrics that provide the best information. The percent of IT value drivers mapped to business value drivers, defined and approved business cases for the overall portfolio, satisfied key stakeholders regarding the accuracy of IT information, and IT-enabled investments in the overall portfolio managed through the full life cycle. Let's start with you, Karina.
So this is really an expansion of kind of what we just talked about, right? So sequences, you're given the drivers, you've selected the projects, you have a number, several numbers on what that investment is in your portfolio. Now you're starting to execute, right? So a few of these could be right in some of the pieces. There's one that's right for the whole thing, right? So sure, we've measured the IT value for those business drivers. We want to land that new customer. We want a higher retention rate. We want to open up 7 more locations, whatever is that business driver, right? We want to have that approved business case part of your project, part of selection, part of that steering committee that says this is the project we're going to be working on is B, right? Stakeholders that are involved, absolutely. We want to make sure that they've all contributed. Hey, this is going to cost me X dollars to pull my staff off of the phone or whatever they're doing to go send them to training because you want to pull out this new tool, right? Or I have to hire a trainer or whatever that situation might be. Really, the correct answer is D, because you want to look at those IT investments across the entire portfolio through that life cycle. So now you're deploying this engagement, this project, this initiative, and what you're doing is you want to measure along that entire execution, really, if that value has shown the ROI that's appropriate from what you invested versus what you got out of it.
Good take. Shannon, any thoughts on this one?
I'm gonna defer to Karina's answer on this one. I don't think I can improve on anything with this one.
Okay. Yeah. And of course, the answer is D. Okay. We'll go to the next one. Which of the following is the best measure of IT performance in the enterprise? Okay. Rate of return in IT investments, percentage of IT projects on time and within budget, number of critical incidents, and level of conformance with service level agreements. So Shannon, you can give give your takes on this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer to this one's pretty straightforward. I would have to go straight to rate of return on IT investments, and return. I mean, it doesn't matter what we're talking about, whether we're talking about IT, we're talking about anything. Your return is what's critical. The level of conformance with the service level agreements pretty much meaningless in the context of the question. That the it really is about whether or not the investment that you've made has made a return that you were expecting for the enterprise. Karina, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I love talking about incidents, and I'd love to make this the right answer somehow, but because I like talking about chasing ambulances and some of our tiering that we have, and where's your data and which data are you recovering first. But it's none of the other ones other than, I mean, it is really the rate of return on those IT investments, and it's calculating the right way the amount of effort that's gone into we see a lot of this with GRC kind of initiatives. We see a lot of controls and a lot of people doing a lot of busy work without that initial appropriation. You kind of want to scope and size correctly and know that the humans that are working on this, the money that contract is costing you, the attention that you're giving it from your executives and who's involved and how it's prioritized. Those are all very, very important when you're talking about the rate of return. So that's really the only answer.
And I think it really does get back to, the IT and cyber all exist to enable business, so keeping it in context to that, in terms of what that really means to the enterprise. The IT is performing to be a business enabler. That's what it exists for.
100%. 100%. A lot of us forget that. And that's a really important thing to remember.
Yeah, and the test does promote and the answers. It's metrics. We got to put metrics on this stuff. So rate of return on IT investments. Okay, 9, to facilitate benefits realization. It is most important for IT enable investments to ensure that full life cycle costs of investments are considered. Benefits definitions must be completed prior to strategy execution. Indirect benefits are translated into financial values. And lastly, ownership of benefits is defined once the strategy has been implemented. I'd like Shannon to start with this one.
All right. Well, I mean, the first thing I do when I approach a question is to really try to get my arms around, the question, the answers. And try to eliminate some that really just don't make sense, right? So the first one that I go to is the ownership of the benefits defined once the strategy has been implemented. That seems a little backwards to me. That leaves A, B, and C. What's most important for IT-enabled investments to facilitate benefits realization? It is most important for an IT-enabled investment to ensure that the full life cycle costs of the investment are considered. Now, that is the best answer in my opinion, because we're talking about benefits realization. So in order for you to see that realization, you got to make sure that those full life cycle costs are considered. That'll be my answer.
And that's actually absolutely correct. So some of these things can also happen kind of, almost as an afterthought. You want to define benefits, obviously, right? You want to define target benefits as you're thinking about the project. You may have had a really great coinky-dink situation happen because you released something and all of a sudden it was this one thing that everybody needed and nobody knew about it. And all of a sudden your customer count, goes up by 450%. So that's kind of an indirect benefit. That's a great thing. But that's going to happen kind of after deployment, after some analysis. What you want to look at is that full life cycle, right? And that full life cycle of implementing that project. Where did you start? Who was involved? What did it take? How much did it cost? The whole thing needs to be looked at. So the answer is A on this one.
And it is and I looked up their answer, is they say determination of a full life cycle cost enables the calculation of net benefits. So once again, the panel is right, and it's A. Okay, number 10. What would be the best way to ensure resources are optimized when an enterprise is investing in a new IT application? Best way to ensure resources are optimized. Replacing the application after it's been fully deprecated, upgrading the application to a new versions as they are released, requiring an annual risk assessment of the application, keeping the business case current until the application is retired. Start with that, Karina, if you would, please.
This is fun,
Yeah.
right? Because some of these answers lead your head to kind of go, am I replacing this vendor? Is that why they're asking me this? Because then in my head, I get into this like parallel processing as I'm sunsetting one vendor. At what point do I switch over to the new vendor? And so my brain kind of goes in a whole bunch of different places with this one. And I think that's from that first option, the replacement of the application, right? But let's take a look at really, so look, we as a business know we need a new IT application. Let's say that's a known thing. What we don't want to do is we don't want to neglect our current application because we have one and it's performing a function. Might not be the best function, might not be optimal, but we made a selection on that application back in the day. We chose to integrate it into our operations. Really, the only answer here is keeping that business case current until we retire that application. Even if we know it's going to go away, we still have to keep it patched. We have to keep it secure. We have to keep it backed up. We still have to keep everything about it active and alive and as current as possible until we do switch over, right? If that's what we end up doing. The other ones are okay. I mean, you can upgrade the application, sure. Then that's important, but that's just one of the things, right? You want to make sure that the business case for the usage of that application stays current. So my answer is D.
Yeah, and I'm sure Shannon agrees, but Shannon, in the real world, in your things, do you see this? Is your group involved in updating business cases, or at least reviewing them and all the services you all do?
This isn't really something that I think we touch per se, but I think that it's really important. I mean, just in the context of the question, the answer D makes the most sense in context to what the question's asking. Obviously, B and C are probably good best practices just from a cyber perspective, but that's not really where the question's taking you, right? In terms of the optimization, the only way you can stay optimized on, the app is to making sure that, the original business case for buying the application is kept up to date. Is it still serving the organization in the way that it was meant to when you first bought it? So, staying on top of it from that perspective. But the other things are just, basic ITSM type principles of, well, once I've decided to deploy this, then I'm going to have to take certain actions to make sure that it's, in the environment and not creating new risks and those types of things. But I think D makes the most sense to me.
Got it. Yeah, and then that's the answer they give is optimal use of IT resources is achieved when the business case is maintained and valid throughout the full economic life cycle of the investment. Okay, let's go to 11. 11 is, which of the following types of IT investments best addresses operational business risk? Best addresses operational business risk. Investments in purchase of another company that fulfills a growth need, replacement of legacy infrastructure, transactional processes that support the company's enterprise resource planning system, designing a knowledge management platform for IT management.
IT service management.
IT service management. Since you read it better than I did, Karina, please take the question.
Yeah.
This is actually a tough one, right? Because it's a tough one because look, our IT investments cover one of three areas. People, process, technology. It's always people, process, technology, right? So if you go do a purchase, you could basically get all three. However, that doesn't always actually address an operational business risk. It might actually introduce more business risk because unless there's, a lot of the M&As I've seen, excuse me, horrible inventory from an asset perspective, from a process perspective, from a people perspective, right? So let's take that one and throw that one out. I don't think that that's the right one. Replacement of a legacy infrastructure, my goodness. Well, how long do we have, right? Because this can be a very tall order. And I don't know if any of you have seen the little video of this beautiful figure out of, they look like little Skittles. And, there's these very concrete colors, and a guy comes up and pulls one Skittle out of the wrong color, and the whole thing just comes down in a shamble, right? If you have rogue code here and there, don't touch it because you don't really know what is there, especially if you're working in an older environment. Just treat all of that with respect. This is a very tall order. Sure, it could help to reduce some of the operational business risk, but I'm kind of thinking that that is not what's being asked here, because that's more of an OpEx cost, not a CapEx cost, right? So now designing knowledge management platform for IT service management, I am one of the biggest fans to try to create tickets that are repeatable and embed in those tickets for the technicians receiving those tickets, solutions on how to fix those tickets. Biggest fan in the world. Don't think that this is asking that sort of an operational question. So really, that transactional processes, right? So this is an inventory of all of those critical processes, because now with the process, you're touching the person, you're touching the technology, you're touching the policy and any decisioning there also. For company enterprise resources, so resource again, process, people, technology, and that's what you plan against. So I'm going to go with the answer is number C, letter C.
Any thoughts on that, Shannon?
Yeah, I mean, when I approach the question, I kind of go back to what can I eliminate here in my answer? So A, easy to eliminate. This is not a business risk issue. This is about, growing revenues. That's somebody else's problem than ours in an organization, generally speaking. Replacement of legacy infrastructure. This is interesting, but that doesn't necessarily mean risk, right? Legacy infrastructure, unless depends on the risk you're measuring, right? If you work in finance, maybe the risk that you're trying to, contain is, heightened costs of that legacy infrastructure. But legacy doesn't necessarily mean insecure. And I'm just coming from a place where I work for a telco, spent almost my entire career at a telco. We have, has anyone here ever heard of TDM services, time division, or now I'm totally caught in my acronym here. Basically, analog services are still out there. People still have POTS lines, and these are very, very difficult for telcos to manage because those 5E switches, there isn't service agreements for them anymore. But guess what? Those services actually work really, really well. If your power ever went out and you have a POTS line in your house, you might be one of the only ones that doesn't have to worry about when their iPhone runs out of power, right? So, but yet a lot of those industries are trying to replace that legacy infrastructure for other reasons, right? Not necessarily because that there's an operational risk to the environment from an IT perspective. I'm actually kind of torn between C and D. So I want to wait and see the answer on this one.
Sure.
Back to you.
They're saying C, and their answer is investing in transactional processes that support the company's enterprise resource planning system, addresses business transaction processing, and is considered part of operational risk. It's a lot of words.
Now we know.
Yeah. So they like C. I'm looking at my notes.
It's C. I was caught up between those two. So
yeah.
well done, Karina.
It's all good. Way to go, Karina. Now, Karina's been 95% of employees. So that's been amazing. Okay. 12. Okay. Which of the following best helps an IT governance professional assign priorities to various programs and projects in the IT portfolio? A resource plan, a business case, a project risk assessment, or existing infrastructure? Which you could probably
Architecture.
have. Take it away, Karina.
You want me to take this one?
Yeah, take this one.
This one's kind of easy. This one's kind of easy, right?
You're supposed to
Because
send the easy ones to me.
so, we were talking about, right, when you're aligning with the corporate goals and you're doing your assessment from an investment perspective, and you have that review session, kind of that steering committee, the thing that you need to nail is that business case, right? So you may have 12 different departments that are wanting your PMO resources or your development resources or your testing resources, right? That business case that aligns to that strategic goal and has those key goal indicators, right, is really the thing that's going to move that project downstream into actual execution. And so the IT governance professional is going to be able to read that use case and say, here's what this thing does. This thing that we're deploying, here's the, governance. You have to create a governance measurement against whether or not it's going to be successful, how you're going to track it downstream, maybe who you need to talk to that's going to own some of the controls that are going to be supported or embedded in that solution, right? So again, resource plans, basic SDLC kind of processes for your programs and your projects, right? Risk assessments, absolutely. If you're not doing a risk assessment as you're executing, just another thing. Existing architecture, absolutely. You want to make sure that you're considering those legacy programs, right? You're considering extra hours potentially for doing a replacement or bringing in a new vendor. The business case is the thing really that's not specifically associated to that project plan that will allow a governance to kind of step in and understand what this is doing from that governance perspective.
Yeah, so you're going with B?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll just read the second answer. A business case provides the necessary, is B, a business case provides the necessary justification for each individual project, important information to help prioritize projects within the IT portfolio and improve the overall performance of the IT portfolio. So yes, 100% down with the business case.
Right.
All right, exactly. Let's go to 13. An organization went live on an enterprise resource planning ERP initiative 3 months ago. What information would be the most valuable to communicate to the board of directors at this time? The performance of the ERP system with maximum user access, the number of transactions processed through the ERP, the performance of the business processes since the ERP go live, the number of headcount that has been cut since the ERP go live. It's pretty simple.
Is that really like an option? How many people got cut?
That's right.
Okay, projects deployed. You're out of here.
Exactly. We're down to one contractor overseas. We're all good. Okay, take it away, Shannon. What's your thoughts on this?
We laugh at D, but hey, I mean, your board of directors might actually be really interested in how much they're saving in terms of personnel. I think number C, jumps right out to me. I mean, if you're talking to the board of directors, they're 100% in on strategy. They're really going to be looking at the decisions that were made, why did we make them, and get back to that, goal of the investment in the first place. And the whole purpose of buying and deploying an ERP is to better improve your business processes. That's what the board's going to care about, right? So I'll go with C.
And it is
Yeah.
C. And I'm sorry, Karina, take away, because there was
No,
something.
no, that's absolutely correct. I go with C as well, because I don't think the other ones make, the whole maximum user access thing concerns me, because that's just very bad. No one should have, like, a few people should have maximum user access. I just don't like the fact that, privileged accounts could be monitored that way. Anyway, so it is C. I agree with C.
Yeah, and I like C. And team, I think it's really important what Shannon said, because I was reading a little what the CGIT and what the purpose is. It is, as you said, Shannon, how does the CIO talk to the board? And you answered, basically, hey, this is the type of information and this is the information they care about. So when you're taking these questions, that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to think of, as a CEO, how would a CEO phrase the information and deliver the information to the board? And the answer being, mapping the ERP outcomes to business performance is the most valuable information to communicate to the board of directors. So that's, self-defining. What are we talking about? CEO talking to board, and that's the answer. Okay. Question 14. The executive steering committee of a managed service provider is addressing a major investment in a new service for the organization. What is the most appropriate cost-benefit analysis technique to determine the ratio of expected profit to the initial investment? Net present value internal rate of return, results of the business case, results of the goals cascade, return on investment, and information economics. And Karina is cringing hearing me read. Go for it, Karina.
What? I don't even. Somebody please write me afterwards and talk to me about information economics. That sounds really interesting. It's ROI, right? We all know this term. We all use the term. We all know how to do this. Goals cascade. Okay, that's quaint. Net present value internal rate of return is important as part of your ROI, right? But basically, you're looking at the ROI here. C.
Yeah. C.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Good. Yeah, and that's what they've been saying. They said ROI is relatively simple calculation that provides decision-making information in terms of ratio. The ratio of expected profit to the initial investment cost is compared to the opportunity cost of capital. If the return is greater than the opportunity cost of capital, the investment should be undertaken. This probably should be a metric. But anyways, question 15. Which of the following best ensures the overall success of an IT program at the enterprise level? The best ensures the overall success of an IT program at the enterprise level. Identifying and monitoring the interdependence between projects, establishing a project monitoring process and continually monitoring the implementation, conducting regular IT audits and formal project reviews, monitoring and controlling project costs. Shannon, you want to go first?
Yeah. So the one that jumps out at me, and I'll give you my logic here, and Karina, you can probably do better explanation here. But the key word that I focus in on is program. And if you look at your answers there, B, C, and D all talk about a project, right? Looking at a singular project. A program is the amalgamation or the conglomeration of multiple projects. So an IT program is going to have lots of projects in flight. So they're kind of giving away the answer here from my perspective, because they're taking the only one that talks about multiple projects coming together to form a program is A.
Yeah, and that's what they're giving. A prerequisite to determining value delivery is to set up a mechanism to identify and monitor the interdependency of strategic initiatives and their impact on value delivery and risk. Agree with that, Karina?
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely correct. Yeah, I have the same answer.
Good deal. Okay. All right. Oh, that was our
Oh,
prepared
that's
was-
the end. That's
for
exactly
the next
brings us to
meeting.
5 minutes for Q&A.
There you go. Yeah, that's perfect. There we go. If there's any questions or anything else we want to share with the audience, let's take it away. Let me see if there's any questions or so. Someone asked if the CGIT is worth the investment. I can say my study process made it worth. It really did, because one, I'm better at understanding, and that's really what it says, actually. Like, part of the thing is that, well, why do we develop a risk framework? And we develop a risk framework, and in the test even says, so we can communicate with each other. Okay. And that's what the CGIT did for me. It helped me look up, things like you said, business scorecard. Okay. And then I had a research business scorecard, and I will continue to research business scorecard, but it had immediate efficacy, immediate value to the product that I created, which was a user access review, which I know, and as an IT guy, as a security guy, people need to do, but metrics help people. How was I 3 months ago? How was I this month? What do I need to be at? And that's where the concepts of metrics, the importance of metrics, and the importance of the CEO addressing the board is what I got mostly out of the CGIT. Is how the conversation should be, how should they be structured, and what's the process around it. So that's what I got out of it. And I think that's Nazia. Any other questions? No. Okay, so let's go with Karina first and then Shannon. Karina, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts is always going to be coordination with everyone, right? So I think silos are our biggest enemy across our enterprises. So when your PMO doesn't know what's important to your finance department, that doesn't know what's important to your IT department, that, those business decisions that we have across the board, how we report on them, how we bring them from infancy to operational to closure, and how we use those metrics to actually make good decisions of how our business is working, of how our business is suffering, are some of those areas where we need to improve. Very, very critical to kind of have the full picture and the full roadmap of that process and involve everyone, because otherwise people are making decisions in silos, and it won't always be a good thing from not only a financial perspective, but just a decisioning and a delivery of service perspective.
Got it. Good deal. And Shannon, any closing thoughts or anything you want to say, including yeah.
Just first of all, just appreciate the invite, letting me sit in here. I think what really stood out to me, when you look at the purpose of this type of cert and what you said, Garrett, and also, you, Karina, with the idea of silos. When I had an opportunity to use the balanced scorecard, I had learned about it in my MBA program. And I had the opportunity to put it to use with a critical infrastructure project that we were working on, and we were trying to build a program from the ground up. And the real amazing piece of a balanced scorecard for me was the ability to drive alignment and break through the silos, because you're pulling everyone together, you're building this document together, and you're building the vision, you're building the mission, you're building your strategic themes all as a team. And now everyone's bought in. There's no silos anymore. What you're trying to get done, you've all created together. You've established that together. And now you have key alignment that then you can use to feed into what are the strategic initiatives now that we're going to do, now that we've got our themes and our vision and mission in place, and then the KPI. It all kind of follows on itself, right? But the power of that alignment to get something done is really incredible. And you shouldn't really the damage that silos can do and a lack of alignment can do in an organization, and the success of a program should be enough to steer you towards wanting something like this.
Yeah.
I like how you answered it, because it even came out in the test and in the readings for the CGIT was, things like business scorecard aren't an end in themselves, but they're a tool to align the different, business concerns and the business entities, and it's a positive. And I got a lot out of that reading. Me as a product builder, it's how to see my product and how, yes, someone might be using it, but communicating its value simply and simplicity to another organization is key.
Yeah.
And I think yeah, I got a lot of value of that. And in fact, just the audience before this, I was like, okay, running cybersecurity services at AT&T, do you believe in certifications? And Shannon, I'll let you just answer that.
I think someone said it already today, but or maybe it was on our prep call before we jumped on.
It was. Yeah.
Certifications to me are not the end all be all, but they do a lot for the space. It helps with hiring, right? It helps to know that you're bringing on someone that not can just pass an exam, but they're fully versed in all of the concepts that they need to understand. And they're not significantly pointed at one particular domain in cyber. That's one of the values of, as an example, some of these certs like CISSP and CISSP and others, they're showing that you've got a broad knowledge base, that, you're not just focused in one area. There's a huge benefit, I think, from a personal lift in terms of confidence that you get when you pass an exam. That's that hard, right? I've talked to a lot of people that have master's degrees and other things, and some of the cybersecurity certifications and the exams that you have to pass in order to achieve those are some of the most difficult that people have ever had, bars that people have had to cross in their academic careers, right? So having gone through that process, I think you come out the other side of it better. Are they the end all be all? No. Can you be a paper tiger and build a bunch of certifications and never really have any practical experience? I mean, technically, no, with some of these certifications, but we all know that that's not necessarily the case either. So I think you have to see them for what they are, but I mean, you don't put all your eggs in one basket, as it were, right? So maybe that's one of the reasons people in cyber like to stack up a lot of different letters behind their name, because they're really trying to go for a balanced resume, if you will. But I believe in them to a degree, but as I said, we talk a lot in cyber as well about soft skills. There's a lot of folks that have a lot of certifications and they can't work on a team. They can't communicate clearly, right? They can't write.
Yeah, I think that's the people skills, but also if you're taking these certifications, you should. I don't know how you can't, but some people don't. The language, learn the language to communicate to others. So that's great. And Shannon, I would be wrong if I didn't say, let's wrap up with anything you're going to say about how do you feel you would be on the board of directors over at ISC Squared? Because I think that's great.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Yeah, so obviously the election started today. We're on a live broadcast, right? So election for ISC2 board of directors runs until June 2nd. We actually launched a podcast for the ISC2 LA chapter, so you can hear a little bit more about me and some of the other candidates. We've jumped on and recorded some podcasts together.
Make sure it's on this list, okay?
Okay, yeah, I'll get it over to you. But I'm just looking forward. To me, being a part of that organization and also running the chapter here in Los Angeles, I feel very connected to the community. I also teach as an adjunct, so I see a lot of folks that are trying to either career pivot or trying to break into cyber. And I think the platform that ISC2 has created for education, certifications, community, really kind of hits the mark for someone who's trying to get off the ground. But then, hopefully, we're coming back and we're helping those that are going to come after us in the profession and giving back, as it were. So that's kind of what motivates me, maybe in a nutshell, to want to be on the board and have more of a global impact. I've been running a chapter in SoCal, but having an opportunity to take that to the next level, if you will.
That was great.
Thank you for pulling out of your vacation to join us. I really want to highlight that for sure. Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you, Karina, for reaching out to Shannon.
Thank you, Garrett, for the great opportunity. All right, talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All of us. Bye.